Hello and welcome back to the Young Just Us podcast. My name is Roman and I'm doing an issue-by-issue deep dive into the 1998 run of DC Comics' Young Justice. Guys, I'm so excited. We're so back. Apologies for missing last week. I was kind of weirdly busy. I had a few things going on and I was also kind of depressed and I didn't plan my time well. But going forward, I'm going to try and plan everything out a lot better and more in advance and really commit to staying on schedule. And if I do need to take a week off, I'll definitely make a post in advance letting you guys know what's going on. We will be picking up where we left off last week and we'll be discussing issue 4 of Young Justice, which is our first issue with the girls of YJ, so I hope you're excited. A couple things before we begin. I answered a couple of asks on the Tumblr, so first of all, thank you so much for interacting and please don't be shy. I'd love to chat over there at any time or through the email. That's yjupodcast@gmail.com once again. Second of all, one of the asks very helpfully let me know that Young Justice didn't actually skip the month of September in 1998. Rather, they released a tie-in issue for the DC 1 million event. So the Young Justice 1 million issue did in fact come out on September 2nd, 1998. So strangely enough, I did actually know that this issue existed, as well as the fact that lots of other DC series had an issue 1 million, but I just didn't connect the pieces of like, oh, these issues must have come out all during the DC 1 million event in September. Like, I think I just thought that they released 1 million issues once a series had finished, so I had planned on covering it after issue 56, which is so dumb. But thank you so much to that Anon for pointing that out. So I will be covering Young Justice 1 million between issues 5 and 6. So next week will be Secret Files, because that's what chronologically follows issue 4. That'll be 4.5 of the podcast. So basically, this is episode 4 covering issue 4. Next week will be Secret Files. The week after that will be issue 5. The week after that will be issue 1 million, and the week after that will be 6. And I'm going to post an actual schedule for the next month on Tumblr of what issues I'll cover, so hopefully that'll be helpful if you're reading along with me or if you just like to know ahead of time where the podcast will be at. So yeah, sorry for not realizing that about issue 1 million, but hopefully this will still be okay. And I'm looking forward to covering it. It's pretty wacky. So yeah, last week we covered issue 3 of Young Justice, where we met a college-aged Mr. Mxyzptlk, stopped him from becoming Superman's tormentor in the future, and then frantically made him reverse that decision because apparently it was important to the balance of the New Earth time stream for Mr. Mxyzptlk to torment Superman. In other words, there was this load-bearing beam that they really shouldn't have removed. Meanwhile, Red Tornado reunited with his adoptive daughter Treya and chased off some bullies for her before apparently recommitting to fatherhood, so good for him. Robin and Superboy had another argument, Bart had a great time, and they saved the world with the power of the Three Stooges. This week we'll be discussing issue 4, which I will begin doing now. Issue 4 of Young Justice is titled Harm's Way and was released on November 4th, 1998. It was written by Peter David, penciled by Todd Nauck, inked by Larry Stucker, colored by Jason Wright, and lettered by Ken Lopez. Panel separations were done by Art Studio Digital Chameleon, and Eddie Berganza is credited as editor, with Frank Barrios as assistant editor. The usual suspects, plus Frank, everyone say hi Frank. Todd Nauck and Larry Stucker contributed to the cover art, which I will be displaying on screen in the YouTube version of this episode right now, but if you're just listening, don't worry because I will describe it. The cover depicts Wonder Girl, Secret, and Arrowette at what is presumably Young Justice's base in the old JLA headquarters cave, the entrance to which has been boarded up. Impulse, Robin, and Superboy are in shadow behind the boards with only their eyes and mouths visible, plus Superboy's straight earring and Impulse's hands peeking out over one of the boards. A few things are written on the boards in red paint, including He-Man woman haters, keep out, no girls, and danger, danger, no trespassing. Some of Arrowette's arrows are also embedded in the wood, and she has another one knocked, while Wonder Girl has a tough expression and a clenched fist, and Secret is trying to get inside the cave. Below the main Young Justice title is the subtitle, Now with Added Girl Power? Exclamation point, question mark, exclamation point? This is a really cute cover, though I do feel it kind of leads the reader astray in terms of the actual content of this issue. The cover sort of implies that the boys will have an objection to letting girls join Young Justice, perhaps even on the basis of them being girls, but no such thing really happens in the issue. Everyone's pretty chill. But you know, they want to put something on the shelves that's eye-catching, something that sells, I get it. I do kind of wish the idea of YJ being a sort of boys club was explored a little more in the actual series though, like if the boys did actually have any feelings about letting girls girls or even just other teen heroes in general join the team, or if the girls felt a little out of place or unwelcomed. But then I guess you might have to address the obvious and rampant sexism in comics in general, which I suppose I'm glad an all-male creative team did not take it upon themselves to get into in the year of 1998, so perhaps for the best. Although that being said, I do think the addition of the girls is handled with relative care, and it's like not as like, whoa, a girl in our team. Like, it could also very easily have gone in that direction, which would have been worse than what we get, which is like a relative, like, yeah, you know, they're also heroes, it's fine. So I think that that is also another way to go about it that is totally valid, and I do appreciate the way that the female heroes are treated by the boys, like maybe with the exception of Superboy, but you know, to be expected, I guess. But yeah, they could have like made a big like thing about it, like, but she has boobs, how can she join our team, you know what I mean? So I'm glad it didn't go that direction, and it all feels pretty realistic to like, they still feel like teenagers, but they handle the situation with the maturity you would hope that teen superheroes would have, so gotta give credit where it's due. The synopsis for this issue on DC Universe Infinite reads, new members join the team, Wonder Girl, Secret, and Arrowette. After discovering an injured Arrowette, the team heads down a path that puts them directly in harm's way. Can they stop the villain before he strikes again? Great synopsis. Can't blame them for using the harm's way pun so much. It's a great pun. I'm going to get into the comic now, so feel free to read along, just listen, or watch the YouTube version where you can see select panels I've pulled from this issue. We open on the title page, which is something of a rarity. Usually we have a couple pages before the title page, so pretty cool. Arrowette appears to be beaten up with an arrow in her shoulder, and she's saying, wait a minute, this isn't funny. A shadow falls over her as she falls to the ground, commenting on her non sequitur and saying that it indeed is not funny at all. Arrowette's attacker drags a blade along her chin and tells her that she wasn't worth his time, even with all her training. He lets her live, though, and tells her to tell Impulse and all teen heroes to, quote, stay out of harm's way. She tries to get up and face him again, but he just laughs her off and walks away. She starts calling for help and then remembers no one comes when you say that, so she starts yelling fire, and the silhouette of the supercycle appears above her. I suppose that Arrowette's line about this isn't funny is sort of lampshading the darker tone of this first page. Like, having read all or most of Young Justice, I haven't thought of it as an exclusively comedic series in a long time, but I do suppose that that's the main tone of the first few issues, definitely, and a lot of the series is like quite funny. There's a big focus on jokes and comedy. The Arrowette costume is, look, I wish she could wear pants. It's a step up from her mother's old costume, I suppose, but you know, I just never buy that female superheroes wouldn't wear their hair up. Wonder Woman gets a pass, I guess, like she's a demigod, whatever, but if I have long blonde hair and I'm shooting arrows, like, that's a slick back bun type situation, you know what I mean? But anyway, her line about the fact that no one comes if you call for help is actually really funny. I like it a lot. I think I'll talk more about Harm later on, but he certainly seems frightening in this scene, and we do get the very first drop of Stay Out of Harm's Way, which we'll be hearing quite a few more times, so great stuff. Meanwhile, in Pamplona, Spain, it's the Fiesta de San Fermin, where citizens race against bulls through the town's narrow streets. The caption urges the reader to forgive the fact that the festival takes place in summer, and last issue was Halloween. A thief named Tora has stolen jewels from a courier. The editor's note on this page reads, and yes, we also know that Tora is a Japanese war cry and has zip to do with Spain, matadors or cattle. But it was either that or a lot of bulls, so count your blessings. Tora plans on riding the bulls to her getaway plane, but Impulse catches up with her. Apparently, she's been on a tear of bull-related crimes, including China shop and Wall Street robberies. They engage in bull-related punning before she tries to get away with her bull whip, but Superboy catches it. She seems to be defeated, but then she points out that Superboy might want to stop a plane from crashing into the crowd. He swears, which is marked by an asterisk, which leads to an editor's note that says, insert current popular but unprintable teen profanity here, and Superboy takes off, Tora once again getting away. But then a battering hits her in the jaw, letting Impulse capture her once again. So, I felt compelled to do quite quite a bit of fact-checking here, just in case. The Fiesta de San Fermín, or the Festival of Saint Fermin, is a week-long festival held in July, specifically July 7th to July 14th, every year in Pamplona, Navarre, Spain. There are a ton of events during this festival, but the running of the bulls happens every day at 8 a.m., and it's kind of the most famous event. I've only done basic research on this, so please correct me if I'm wrong, but I wouldn't really characterize this as a race against the bulls. It's more of like running amongst the bulls. Basically, this was a way to just actually physically move the bulls from outside the city, where they were bred and raised, into the bull ring in the city, which is where the afternoon bullfighting, another event of the festival, would take place. So originally the bull run wasn't even an event, it was just like, this is how we get the bulls into the city. But citizens basically ran in front of or beside the bulls for fun or to show their bravery or courage. This was in the early 1900s when the festival was being established. You could do it to impress your girlfriend, basically. Then it just kind of became tradition. So yeah, not really a race, I wouldn't say. Moving on to the thief herself, Tora, here. Tora being a Japanese war cry is not correct, or it's a lot more complicated than that. This idea comes from the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, where Japanese pilot Mitsuo Fuchida supposedly yelled "Tora, Tora, Tora" as he led the assault, and this idea was then popularized by the 1970 war film called Tora, 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 which was a dramatization and reenactment of Pearl Harbor. So in Japanese, the word Tora literally means tiger, but from my research, and I could not find any primary sources for this, so definitely take it with a grain of salt, but apparently Japanese commander Tadakazu Yoshioka prearranged codes because the Japanese pilots were outfitted with telegraphs rather than microphones. So he chose easily recognizable Morse code signals, which were to, which was to signal the attack, and ra, which would signal that the attack was successful, that the US soldiers had not caught on, therefore the attack had unfolded as planned as a surprise. So to signal the attack, Fuchida instructed his radio operator to send the coded signal to, meaning start attack, and once the bombs had dropped, Fuchida sent along the infamous Tora message, indicating like attack complete, attack was a surprise, all good. Tora, being the word for tiger in Japanese, was pure coincidence, and that phrase has not been used in basically any other context anywhere at all. So it's really not accurate to call it a Japanese war cry. It was a product of the specific environment and circumstances of Pearl Harbor, and this idea that it's a Japanese war cry has been popularized and spread, but this is not correct from my research. What I believe they were actually going for was a feminine version of the Spanish word for bull, which is toro, though the actual form presented here, tora, is not a word in Spanish. It's the same way that we have a different name for female bulls in English, which is cows. Spanish calls female bulls or cows vacas. I'm not saying this is a mistake. They clearly knew a lot of this stuff was silly or inaccurate, as indicated by the editor's notes, and Lotta Bull is a way worse name than Tora, so fair. But all of this, the timeline discrepancy of the last issue having been Halloween and this one ostensibly taking place during this festival in the summer, the name, I mean, like, they couldn't have just made it a male villain named Toro. It all just seems like a lot to finagle and set up just for like 5 bull puns. Like, the fact that all of this happens during this festival is inconsequential, and this whole side plot with Tora is, first of all, her only appearance ever in any comic ever. And second of all, this isn't even like the main plot of the comic. We get back to Happy Harbor pretty quickly. I guess it's just to show that Fight and Mad are like still tracking them and they follow them to Spain, I guess. But I wonder why they were so set on this storyline. Like, it seems like they could have just done a way easier version of it. Maybe they were really attached to Tora's design or something. I do think all the bull jokes are really funny though, and the China shop and Wall Street robbery jokes are really funny. If you don't know, there's an English idiom to express indelicacy, to say something or someone is like a bull at a China shop. And on Wall Street, there's a large bronze bull statue which symbolizes financial prosperity. The stock market is also called the bull market sometimes. So lots of bull stuff, and then Impulse telling her she's going to the bullpen. That got a snort out of me, not gonna lie. Just a note about a portion of dialogue here. It's marked with angle brackets to indicate it's being translated from another language, in this case Spanish. And in the translated dialogue, there are Spanish words, like Tora says, sorry, senor, jewel courier. Now, this isn't wrong per se. In translation, there are two different strategies called domestication and foreignization. You might also know domestication as localization. That's basically trying to naturalize translated text in the target language. This includes coming up with comparable idioms, like for example, in Korean, there's an idiom for an easy or simple task, nuoso tteokbokki, which means it's like eating rice cake lying down. So that would probably be domesticated or localized as a piece of cake. Foreignization aims to keep elements of the original language, sometimes foreign words, or like a foreignized translation of the previous example would probably keep the original idiom of eating rice cake lying down, just written in English rather than Korean. I tend to generally lean toward foreignization, but it really depends on the specific origin text and the purpose of the translation. Like, I would usually go with domesticated translation for children's media over foreignized. Anyway, you could say that the translations here are foreignized, but I tend to be of the opinion that if a word has a direct analog in the target language, that word should be used. If I had translated Tori's line, for example, I would have just had her say, "Sorry, Mr. Jewel Courier," rather than "Senor Jewel Courier." But also the target audience for YJ is quite young, so, you know, it's good to be exposed to other languages and cultures. Just a fun translation note I thought would be interesting since, you know, I got my bachelor's degree in linguistics and I occasionally need to blow some dust off of that thing. Okay, moving on. I love the panel of Superboy catching Toro's bullwhip. I'll put it on screen. It's just very dynamic and nice to look at. Superboy's costume was so good, and I cannot believe that they replaced it with that t-shirt. Like, what the heck? But guys, have you seen the concept art for season 3 of My Adventures with Superman? I would know those sunglasses anywhere. Our boy might be back. But I am worried about production on season 3 because those pictures came out like 2 years ago in 2024. I'm like, guys, where's season 3, I wonder? Getting kind of nervous here. But anyway, the insert current popular but unprintable teen profanity here gag with Superboy is really funny. I wonder what he said. Please leave your guesses in the comments or shoot me an ask on Tumblr with your best 90s teen profanity that would also be in character for Superboy to say guess. They should have just taken a shot at it, honestly, in my opinion. Like, get Carl Kiesel in here with his slang dictionary. Be brave. It is kind of silly to me how committed Tim is to the whole urban legend bit. This will become more of an issue later, but it's just funny to like wait in the shadows with a batarang at the ready. I guess that's kind of the whole Batman ethos, but still. A little later, the police take Tora away and she delivers the classic Scooby-Doo villain line, and I would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for those meddling kids. The police also congratulate them on a job well done, calling them Young Caballeros, and Impulse says he likes that name better than Young Justice. Impulse and Superboy high five, and just as they wonder where Robin is, he appears above them on a rooftop. Impulse comments on how quickly the sun set at Robin's entrance, and Robin asks if either of them have seen the Supercycle. Apparently he whistled for it earlier, but it didn't come. Superboy says that Robin is the cycle's guiding mind, so he should know, but Robin replies that while the cycle may like him the best, it definitely has a mind of its own. He's interrupted, however, by Fight and Mad in matching sombreros, asking to have a word with the boys. Robin wonders how they show up everywhere they go, and Fight and Mad say it's just part of the job. Apparently they have a case they want to discuss with the boys. They want to know where the bottle girl is. The boys feign ignorance, though they're all, of course, thinking of Secret. Robin whistles for the supercycle to get out of the conversation, which actually shows up this time. Fight and Mad try to warn them about how dangerous Secret is and that they may have to take unpleasant steps if the boys refuse to cooperate, but they leave anyway. Superboy tries to assure Robin that they have the situation completely under control, and Fight and Mad were just trying to scare them. When he looks into the back seat of the cycle, though, he sees blood. Alright, Impulse's beef with the Young Justice name continues. Seriously, what is his problem? Okay, so I used the panel of Robin on the roof as the episode teaser this week. It's just really hilarious that in the panel before it's fully daytime. And also remember, the bull run starts at 8 a.m. every day during the festival, so it can't be afternoon yet, much less evening. And as soon as they're like, "Where's Rob?" Tim appears on the roof and it's nighttime, and Impulse is like, "Boy, it gets dark fast around here." I love jokes like that. Yes, the Supercycle is busy helping Arrowette. I wonder why? I can't remember if there's an explanation for this, like how it knew she was in trouble, because it's not like she's met the cycle before. She only knows Impulse, and Impulse isn't the guiding mind like Robin is, so I don't know. I guess the line about it having a mind of its own is supposed to account for that. And alright, the gag of fighting mad in matching cultural costumes according to their location is really growing on me. Like, in isolation, it can seem kind of offensive, like in issue 2 with the turbans, question mark. But if they're doing that literally everywhere they go, it makes it funny to me. Like, that's just how they roll. It also plays into the gag of undercover cops being really obvious about being undercover cops, which is great. I do wonder, much like Tim, how they're tracking the boys, or if they're tracking the super cycle more accurately, because I'm assuming the cycle is how the boys got to Spain, and Fightin' Mad did show up first on the dig site where the cycle was unearthed, so maybe they're just tracking the cycle. I also don't remember if they answered this later. We'll see. I also wonder why they decided to confront them about Secret now. Like, perhaps they just got some evidence that the boys definitely lied about Secret dying in Young Justice the Secret. I think this might actually be answered next week in Secret Files. We'll see. But yeah, the panel of all of the boys having the thought bubbles of Secret while they lied to Fight Mad is really cute. And it's interesting that she's in different poses in the 3 thought bubbles. Like, in Bart's, she's waving with a big smile. In Superboy's, she's, like, posed kind of sexily. And in Robin's, she looks quite serious. I think it definitely reflects how the 3 of them thought or think of her. Bart's like, oh, Secret, she was so nice. And Superboy's like, Secret, she was kind of hot. And Robin's like, Secret, she was scary and powerful. Very in character, I guess. When I first read this, I hadn't read Young Justice the Secret, nor did I know it existed. Thank you very much, Disorganized DC Universe Infinite. So I was very lost there, like, Bottle Girl, what are they talking about? I do love Impulse's thought bubble though, not the secret one, but when Agent Maz says they may have to take unpleasant steps, Bart says, oh, we wouldn't want that, and imagines Agent Maz stepping off a cliff, taking an unpleasant step. It's also funny that Superboy is sort of anti-cop here, talking to Robin like, they're just trying to psych us out, man, we got this under control. And then the blood reveal is pretty good. I love how Bart is always doing something random when he's riding in the front seat of the cycle. Like, here he's going through what look like cassettes, and in issue 2 he was playing Connect 4, if I remember correctly. Great stuff from our ADHD king. Elsewhere, Cassie Sandsmark as Wonder Girl is beating up some idiot jocks who were apparently tormenting a stray cat, which, once saved, proceeds to scratch Cassie for her trouble. Annoyed, she complains to herself that her superhero efforts never seem to lead to anything good, but a voice from a mysterious mist tells her that she's great. It turns out to be Secret, who tells her that she was hoping they could be friends, and that she could introduce Wonder Girl to some of her other friends. Wonder Girl isn't interested at first, but at the mention of Superboy, she becomes very eager to meet the boys. So yeah, you can imagine, having not read The Secret, I was very confused here, but basically just rolling with it. Luckily here at the YJU podcast, we are well informed and up to date on our lore for the most part. I will say that the first panel of Wonder Girl here, it's very cool, but there's like kicked up dust obscuring her lower legs, and I genuinely think it's because Todd Knock couldn't figure out this pose, but her ankles just look so broken as a result of the placement of her feet. It's almost like he did a pose and then didn't like it and drew the other pose, but ran out of time, so had to keep the feet of the first pose for the second pose. Just cover up the feet too, you know what I mean? But yeah, that gets me every time I look at the panel. I can't unnotice it. I'm just like, damn Cassie, your ankles. She also just looks generally so chopped in these early issues. Once she loses the wig later on and gets her amazing red jeans that I want so bad, then we'll be cooking. Alas, we'll have to wait. The scene with Secret is really cute. I just love our team finally getting together. I love the detail that when Secret introduces herself, she says, I'm called Secret, not I am Secret, alluding to the fact that she does have a name, she just doesn't know it, and Secret is just what the people she knows and actually likes call her. And Cassie saying she's named after a deodorant is quite funny, and then being like, your friends, what is it, Reichard, Old Spice, Ban? I guess only Old Spice has stuck around. Some 90s deodorant brands for you there. This is also the beginning of Cassie's crush on Superboy, which I'll definitely be tracking through the series. It actually doesn't get on my nerves too much, surprisingly. In the next scene, in a suburban home, a mother and father worry over their 17-year-old son. Ellen, the mother, wants to get him therapy, but the father, Bert, insists that their son is lost to them, and all they can do now is pray that he leaves and doesn't come back. Eileen accuses Bert of being too scared to discipline him, and Bert says that he is, and reveals a scar on his throat that his son gave him, apparently nearly killing him. Ellen says he was only 11 when he did it, and Bert says that's exactly the problem. Their son then comes out of his room, and it's the villain that hurt Arrowette in the first pages. He tells his parents that he's going out, and Eileen quietly encourages Bert, who tries to stand up and tell their son that his curfew is 11 p.m. Their son, Harm, finds this droll and says that he already lets them live, they shouldn't press their luck. Bert and Eileen cry together after he leaves. Okay, so this is like one of the funniest scenes ever to me. Like, the first time I read this, I was hysterical. The reveal that Harm is 17 years old is just so insane and hilarious to me. Like, the guy we saw in the beginning, he's not like an assassin from the League of Shadows. He's literally just some 17-year-old edgelord living in the suburbs. It gets less funny once we learn the backstory later, but God, this reveal just kills me, bro. Like, me when I learned the word droll. A curfew, how droll. Like, shut up, bro. Get back in that house, Billy. You have an algebra test tomorrow, bro. Put that sword down. I do feel bad for Bert and Eileen, but also you simply must call the cops on him. Like, you simply must. The boys get back to the cave in the bloodied supercycle, and Red Tornado meets them, saying they have a situation, and leads them down to the med lab, where the injured Arrowette is laying on a cot. Red Tornado says that the cycle brought her there, and she said she knew Impulse, who indeed recognizes her, and that she requested no one call the police or take her to a hospital. Arrowette explains that she doesn't want the trouble from her mother and the school she goes to. Red Tornado explains that the arrow went in with near surgical precision, but it'll be difficult to remove without hurting her more. Impulse jumps in, though, vibrating the arrow to pass it harmlessly out of Arrowette's shoulder. She thanks him, and Robin begins wrapping her shoulder while she explains what happened. Apparently, she received a letter addressed to her civilian identity, though the sender also knew her superhero identity, and it said the sender wanted to tip her off to a crime ring and instructed her to meet them. She did, against her better judgment, and that's when the villain attacked. She instinctively didn't try to use her trick arrows, so used a standard one to try to pin the villain's cape to the wall, but he caught it and threw it back at her with speed comparable to Impulse. It went through her shoulder. She explains that he called himself Harm, and that he asked her to tell other teen heroes to stay out of his way. Superboy immediately takes off to take out Harm, despite Robin's protests and Impulse's annoyance, telling Robin that he took down plenty of bad guys as a solo act, and one more won't hurt. So Bart makes a Boys Are Back in Town reference when they get back to the cave, which is great. Bart's taste in music is so funny, like, yes to Thin Lizzy, but no to Hanson. Actually kind of cultured of him if you think about it. I also can't tell if Red Tornado is being sarcastic or not during this interaction, where he's like, "It appears, lads, that we have a situation on our hands," and Tim says, "Down in the med lab, I'll bet, there's blood all over the supercycle," and then Red Tornado is like, "Well done, young Holmes. Clearly you were trained by the world's greatest detective." Like, is he being like, "Yeah, no, duh, Robin," or is he genuinely like, "Excellent deduction, Tim. Let me know what you think." I think he's being genuine, but it's just like the way that like some of the words are italicized, you know, the way that comics do. I was like, that sounds kind of sarcastic to me. It's really cute that Sissy asked for Bart, and he immediately recognizes her and personally helps her get the arrow out. I recently read the Impulse issue where they meet, and yeah, it makes total sense that she wouldn't want the police involved since her custody situation is so complicated, to say the least. It's also just nice when things carry over from other series. Guys, has anyone thought of this before? You could make an entire interconnected universe. It's almost like this is the entire concept that the modern comics industry is predicated upon. But yeah, Impulse vibrating the arrow out is so freaking cool. Like, God, I just love speedster power sets, and Bart's in particular is so sick. Also a little moment of trust here between Tim Bart, where Superboy is going to stop Bart before he can start with the arrow, but Robin says it's okay and Bart knows what he's doing. Very sweet. But yes, all of this stuff with Harm is very mysterious. The surgical precision of the arrow entrance and speed with which he threw it points to super strength, so possibly a metahuman, and him knowing Arrowette's secret identity is also quite concerning. Just noting all this for the future. And guys, look, I know I say this in literally every single episode, but Superboy is the id. He's always rushing off to do what he wants to do, and the joke where Impulse is like, "Boy, don't you hate it when people just take off and do whatever they feel like?" And then everyone just looks at him. It isn't even that much of a joke because yes, Bart does that sort of, but he also, one, did not do that this time when he has plenty of reason to, since he personally knows Arrowette, and 2, he usually does listen quite intently to what Robin tells him to do, and he does it. And look, I'm sure my perspective is a little skewed because I haven't read a ton of the Impulse series, where I'm sure his, no pun intended, impulsivity is much more obviously an issue, and it's sort of curbed here in Young Justice where he's put into contrast with Superboy, so I don't disagree that Impulse is the id, like, generally in his life or in a lot of other situations, but the whole point of Red Tornado's explanation in issue 1 was to show how and why they're a good team, and Freud's model of the psyche is all about how the id, ego, and superego relate to each other and function in concert with each other. So all I'm really saying is that in Young Justice, in these early issues especially, Superboy is functionally the id in contrast to Robin, who is functionally the superego, in contrast to Impulse, who functions as an in-between in this particular team in these particular circumstances. It's like how if you have like blue-green eyes, if you wear a green shirt, they look more green. If they wear a blue shirt, they look more blue. So like Impulse in his life with Max Mercury is way more the id, but when he's in Young Justice, he's the ego. Like, two things can be true, you know what I mean? Now, things are obviously about to change with the girls joining the team, and that dynamic will shift, so you won't have to hear me rave about this much more, probably, but that's my thesis statement for early Young Justice. Jot it down. Thank you for putting up with hearing it multiple times. Moving on. Wonder Girl and Secret are headed to the cave headquarters, Secret assuring Wonder Girl that the boys won't mind if they just show up. Suddenly, a metal device attaches itself to her leg, dragging her down. It's from a car below them, and inside it is Harm. In the captions, he speaks to something called the Book of Blood, and his newest entry is Wonder Girl. He's cataloging her strengths and weaknesses. The metal hook is attached to Harm's car and pulls Wonder Girl along with it, slamming her into a bridge that he drives under. Secret goes into the car to confront Harm and tells him to let Wonder Girl go, but Harm electrocutes her and she seeps out of the car. He enters her also into the Book of Blood. Then Harm notices his car being pulled backward by Superboy and is excited at the prospect of a real challenge. Meanwhile, Superboy is helping Wonder Girl, detaching the metal device from her. He introduces himself and Cassie is love-struck when she realizes who's helping her. They have a flirty exchange, but Secret interrupts, trying to warn them about Harm, though she's not fast enough and Harm throws his sword. Superboy catches it and wonders aloud how Harm will do when he's not fighting girls. Harm rightfully calls him a chauvinist and a big mouth, and the sword that Superboy caught sprays gas into his mouth. Harm kicks Superboy and says, "As I thought, my studies are correct. Your powers stem from concentration. Interrupt that, and you're innocuous enough." Wonder Girl tries to go after him again, but Harm easily dispatches her, pointing out that she's already taken a beating and is running on fumes. He looks for Secret, but leaves in his car when he hears police sirens. He says, "Oh, sirens, the constabulary. Fitting, I suppose. The superheroes saved by the mundane police force." When the police get there, everyone's gone, and we see that Fight and Mad also arrive, convinced that Secret was there. Okay, so things we know about Harm so far. I just like to go down the list. He calls himself Harm, unironically, perhaps for the sole purpose of being able to tell people to stay out of harm's way. He tried to kill his father at 11 years old. He is 17 years old currently and drives a knockoff Batmobile. He has immense disdain for superheroes and talks to something called the Book of Blood. Lovely. Just making sure we're all on the same page. Oh, and he uses words like droll and calls the police the constabulary, also unironically. God, I hate him. He does get points for calling Superboy a big mouth chauvinist, though. Like, yes, he kills people, but at least he's a feminist, I guess. I love Secret's impression of the boys being like, "Yeah, they're super chill, trust me, they faked my death for me." Not that that's wrong, but it's cute how much trust she puts in them. And it is so awful to see her get electrocuted with the knowledge of her backstory. Like, Billy, when I get you, bro. Okay, I also have a question for you guys. Do you think Superboy clocked Cassie's crush here? And do you think he reciprocates her feelings in a genuine way at any point throughout the series? Just curious what your guys' takes are on that. It's also interesting to point out how reliant or connected Superboy's TTK is to his concentration. Like, even when Superman's unconscious, he's still invulnerable, but it's a lot more complicated for Superboy, which sucks. In the last scene, all 6 of our heroes are safely back at the cave, and Cassie feels a little jealous about Superboy checking up on Arrowette rather than her. Robin scolds Superboy for taking off by himself earlier, but Superboy blows up on him, saying that if he'd waited, then Wonder Girl might have died. They argue, but Secret interrupts, saying that she brought them all together because she needs their help to free her fellow extra-normal friends from the DEO before it's too late. So this is tough because I usually agree with Robin in these arguments, but Superboy does kind of have a point here. What do you guys think? I love how when they're fighting, Secret's like, yeah, could you guys, stop arguing about useless stuff for 2 seconds? I'm kind of on a really important mission here. Fair. And yes, can't wait to do Secret Files, which this story will lead into, and that will be next week, episode 4.5. I love that issue, so definitely look forward to it. But yeah, that's the end of this issue. I think I said everything I want to say. Let me know what you guys thought in the comments via email or on social media. That's all YJU Podcast, all one word, across all platforms. All links will always be in the description or show notes below. Make sure to subscribe to the pod wherever you're listening. Stay out of harm's way, and I'll catch you guys next week. Thank you for listening, and remember, it's not Young Justice, it's Young Just Us.